The restaurant was packed that Saturday night. I could hear the noise from the private dining room all the way back in the kitchen. Laughter, clinking glasses. The kind of celebration where money wasn't even a thought. I had been working at Riverside Restaurant for about 3 months now. It wasn't a bad job, really. The pay was decent and the tips were good when we hosted private parties like this one. I kept my head down, did my work, and went home. That's all I wanted. A simple life, no drama, no attention. Tonight was supposed to be just another shift. Clear the plates. Refill the drinks. Smile politely. Stay invisible. I pushed through the double doors with a tray of fresh champagne glasses. The private room was decorated with balloons and streamers. Must have cost someone a fortune just for the setup. At the center of it all sat the birthday guy. I didn't catch his name at first, but everyone seemed to orbit around him. He was maybe in his early 30s, wearing an expensive suit with no tie, talking loud enough for the whole room to hear. His friends matched his energy. They were the kind of people who never had to worry about rent or student loans. You could just tell. The women wore dresses that probably cost more than my monthly salary. The men had watches that caught the light every time they moved their wrists. I moved between the tables quietly, doing my job. I had gotten good at being invisible. When you serve people like this, they don't really see you. You're just part of the furniture, part of the service. And honestly, I preferred it that way. As I was clearing some plates from a side table, I noticed the piano. It sat in the corner of the room, dusty and forgotten. The restaurant kept it there for atmosphere, I guess. In all my time working here, I had never seen anyone play it. It was just a decoration, a pretty piece of wood gathering dust. I tried not to look at it. Pianos had a way of making my chest tight. They reminded me of things I didn't want to remember. So I focused on my work, stacking plates carefully, wiping down the table. That's when I heard his voice cut through the noise. "Hey, you there?" I looked up. The birthday guy was staring right at me. The whole room seemed to turn in my direction. My stomach dropped. Had I done something wrong? Spilled something without noticing? "Yeah, you. Come here for a second." I set down my tray and walked over, trying to keep my face neutral. Professional. In this job, you learn to handle anything with a smile. "Let me see your hands," he said. I blinked. "I'm sorry?" "Your hands. Show me." Confused, I held out my hands, palms down. He grabbed my right hand and turned it over, examining my fingers. His friends were watching now, curious about what he was doing. "I knew it," he said, grinning. "You play piano, don't you? Look at these calluses." My blood went cold. I pulled my hand back gently. I used to. A long time ago. Perfect. He clapped his hands together like he had just won something. "We've got entertainment, everyone. Our server here is going to play for us." A few people laughed. Some cheered. I stood there frozen, not sure what to say. "Oh, come on, don't be shy," he continued, gesturing toward the piano. "It's just sitting there. Give us a song. Play Happy Birthday or something. Make it fun." I wanted to disappear, just melt into the floor and vanish. "I don't really play anymore," I said quietly. "I'm actually working right now, so—" "I'll make it worth your while," he interrupted, pulling out his wallet. "What do you make in tips tonight? 100? 200? I'll double it. Just play one song." The room was watching me now. All of them. Waiting to see what I would do. Some looked amused. Others looked curious. A few seemed uncomfortable with the whole situation, but no one said anything. I glanced toward the kitchen doors and saw my manager standing there. He gave me a small nod. The kind that meant, "The customer wants this, so make it happen." This birthday guy was clearly important. Probably spent thousands of dollars at the restaurant. My manager wasn't going to let me say no. I felt trapped. My hands started to shake slightly, so I clasped them behind my back. "I really don't think everyone wants to hear you play," the birthday guy announced to the room. "Right, everyone?" His friends cheered and clapped, encouraged by the alcohol and the party atmosphere. They probably thought this was hilarious. The server forced to perform, like I was part of the entertainment package they had paid for. I looked at the piano again. It had been 3 years since I had touched one. 3 years since I had let myself even think about music. There was a reason for that. A painful reason that I carried with me every single day. But I didn't have a choice. Not really. I needed this job. I needed the money, and making a scene would only make things worse. "Okay," I said quietly. "One song." The room erupted in applause and whistles. I walked toward the piano like I was walking toward an execution. Each step felt heavier than the last. The birthday guy was laughing with his friends, probably thinking he had just made the party more interesting. I sat down on the bench. The wood was cold beneath me. The piano looked old up close. The keys were yellowed and some of them had chips in the ivory. I wondered if it was even in tune. My hands hovered over the keys. They were shaking now and I couldn't stop them. The room behind me had gone quiet, waiting. I could feel dozens of eyes on my back. Some people had their phones out, probably ready to record this for their social media. Look at what we made the server do. How funny. How quirky. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. My left hand felt stiff. It always did. The doctors had done their best, but some things couldn't be fully fixed. The fourth finger didn't move quite right. There was a stiffness that never went away. A reminder, for 3 years I had avoided this. Avoided the memories. Avoided the pain. I had built a wall around that part of my life and locked it away. Music was in the past. It belonged to a different person, someone I used to be. But now, sitting here with no escape, I realized something. If I was going to do this, if I was going to be forced to play for these people who saw me as a joke, then I wasn't going to give them what they expected. I wasn't going to play Happy Birthday. I wasn't going to play some cheerful little tune that they could laugh at and forget. I was going to play something real. Something true, even if it broke me open. My fingers touched the keys and I began to play. The moment my fingers touched the keys, everything changed. It was like opening a door I had nailed shut 3 years ago. All the memories came flooding back at once and I couldn't stop them. I was 16 when I first played at Carnegie Hall. 16. Most kids my age were worried about driver's licenses and prom dates. I was performing Chopin in front of 2,000 people. The newspapers called me a prodigy. My teacher said I had a gift that came once in a generation. But none of that mattered as much as seeing my mom in the front row that night. She was crying before I even finished the first movement. Happy tears. Proud tears. She had given up everything for my music. Her own career as a violinist had taken a back seat the moment she realized I had talent. Every lesson. Every competition. Every practice session that ran until midnight. She was there. Always there. Pushing me when I wanted to quit. Believing in me when I doubted myself. She used to say that music wasn't just about playing the right notes. It was about telling a story that words couldn't tell. I never really understood what she meant until I lost her. The accident happened on a Tuesday night. We were driving home from a late practice session. It had been raining all day and the roads were slick. I don't remember much about the actual crash, just the sound of tires squealing. The feeling of everything spinning. Then nothing. When I woke up in the hospital, my dad was sitting next to my bed. His eyes were red.
He didn't have to say anything.
I already knew. My left hand was wrapped in bandages. Broken in 4 places, the doctors said. They had to put pins in to hold the bones together. Surgery after surgery. Physical therapy that made me scream in pain. The doctors kept telling me I was lucky. Lucky to be alive. Lucky to keep my fingers, but I didn't feel lucky. My mom was gone, and my hand would never be the same. The precision I needed for professional performance was gone. That's what the specialist told my dad when they thought I couldn't hear. His concert career is over. The best we can hope for is that he'll regain normal function. Normal function, like I was just a regular person who needed to type on a keyboard or hold a fork. They didn't understand that normal wasn't enough. Not for the kind of music I played. Not for the career I had been building since I was 5 years old. My dad tried to be strong. But I could see he was drowning. The medical bills piled up. The grief was crushing him. We had to sell our house, sell my piano, move across the country to live with his brother. A fresh start, he called it. A chance to leave the pain behind, but you can't leave pain behind. It follows you. It lives in your bones and your memories and your dreams. I stopped playing completely. Couldn't even listen to music without feeling sick. Every note reminded me of her. Of what I had lost. Of the future that had been taken away from both of us. Music had been our language, our bond. Without her, it felt meaningless. My dad never pushed me. He understood. Or maybe he just didn't know what to say. We barely talked about her. We barely talked about anything, really. He worked 2 jobs. I went to community college. We existed in the same apartment but lived in different worlds of grief. I took the restaurant job to help with bills. It was supposed to be temporary. Just until I figured out what to do with my life. But months turned into a year, then 2 years, then 3. I stopped thinking about the future, stopped dreaming. I just worked and studied and tried not to feel anything too deeply. And now here I was, sitting at a piano in front of strangers who had no idea who I used to be, who I could have been. They saw a server, someone to order around, someone to laugh at. But as my fingers found their position on the keys, something shifted inside me. Maybe it was anger. Maybe it was grief finally finding a way out. Maybe it was my mom's voice in my head, telling me to stop hiding. I started playing a piece I had written during her last days in the hospital. I never performed it for anyone. Never even finished it properly. I called it Unfinished Conversation because that's what it was. All the things I never got to say to her. All the things she never got to say to me. The music started soft, hesitant, like trying to speak after years of silence. My left hand wasn't perfect. The fourth finger lagged just slightly. There was a stiffness that would never go away. But I had learned something during all those physical therapy sessions. I learned to work around it, to make the imperfection part of the music. The melody was simple at first, just a few notes repeated. But underneath there was something else. A sadness that felt like it came from somewhere deeper than sound. I let my right hand carry the main theme while my left provided the foundation. The heartbeat. The steady rhythm that keeps going even when everything else falls apart. I played with my eyes closed. I wasn't in the restaurant anymore. I was in that hospital room with its beeping machines and sterile smell. I was in our old practice studio with the afternoon light coming through the windows. I was 5 years old and my mom was guiding my small hands over the keys for the first time. The piece grew more complex, the emotions layered on top of each other. Loss and love, anger and acceptance. Pain and beauty existing in the same space, inseparable. This was what my mom meant about telling stories with music. This was the thing that words could never capture. I wasn't playing for the people in the room. I wasn't playing for tips or approval. I was playing for her. For me. For everything that had been broken and everything that somehow still survived. The music swelled, reaching toward something I couldn't name. A question without an answer. A goodbye that never felt complete. My hands moved across the keys like they had a memory of their own. Muscle memory that 3 years of silence couldn't erase. And then slowly the piece began to quiet. The notes spread further apart. Like a voice fading, like someone walking away. The final chord hung in the air, suspended, unresolved. Because some things don't get resolution. Some conversations stay unfinished forever. I held the last note until it disappeared completely into silence. Then I opened my eyes. The room was completely still. No one was laughing now. No one was drinking or talking or checking their phones. They were just sitting there frozen, staring at me. And that's when I saw them, tears. On the faces of people who minutes ago had seen me as nothing more than hired help. The birthday guy had his hand over his mouth. A woman near the window was wiping her eyes. Even my manager stood by the door with a strange expression on his face. I had played for maybe 4 minutes. But in those 4 minutes, something had changed. They had heard something real. Something true. And they didn't know what to do with it. Neither did I. My hands were shaking as I pulled them away from the keys. I had just ripped open every wound I spent 3 years trying to heal. I had exposed the rawest part of myself to a room full of strangers, and I had no idea what would happen next. The silence lasted forever. Or maybe it was just a few seconds. I honestly couldn't tell. Time felt strange. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I stood up from the piano bench. My legs felt weak. I needed to get out of that room. Get back to the kitchen. Back to being invisible. Back to being safe. I had just shown these people a part of me that I never showed anyone. It felt like standing naked in front of strangers. But before I could take a step, the birthday guy stood up. Slowly, like he was in a daze. "Who are you?" he asked. His voice was completely different now. Quiet, almost shaking. "I mean, who are you, really?" I didn't know how to answer that. Who was I? A failed prodigy, a server? Someone who used to be somebody? I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Then a woman stood up from one of the tables. She was older, maybe in her 60s, wearing an elegant black dress. She was staring at me with this look of recognition that made my stomach drop. "You're him," she said, walking closer. You're the boy who played at the Boston Symphony Hall 7 years ago. You played Rachmaninoff. I was there. I remember because my husband turned to me during the performance and said it was the most beautiful thing he had ever heard. The room seemed to tilt. Someone from my past life here now recognizing me. You were extraordinary, she continued, her voice soft. The reviews said you were going to be one of the greats. And then you just disappeared. Everyone wondered what happened to you. All eyes were on me now. But it felt different than before. They weren't looking at me like I was entertainment anymore. They were looking at me like I was a mystery they wanted to understand. My manager rushed over, confused about what was happening. Is everything okay here? Did you enjoy the performance? The birthday guy ignored him. He was still staring at me. What happened? He asked. Why are you working here? Why aren't you performing? I felt exposed, vulnerable. Part of me wanted to run, but another part, a part I thought had died, wanted to tell the truth. Wanted someone to know. There was an accident, I said finally. My voice came out rough. 3 years ago, my mom died, and I broke my hand. The doctor said I'd never play professionally again. The words hung in the air, simple words that carried so much weight. Your mother, the older woman said gently. She was a violinist, wasn't she? I think I saw her perform once too. Years ago, I nodded. Couldn't speak anymore. My throat was too tight. The birthday guy ran his hand through his hair. He looked genuinely upset. I'm so sorry, he said. I asked you to play as a joke. I thought it would be funny. I had no idea. How could you? I managed to say. You didn't know. But that's the thing, he said. I didn't bother to know. I saw you as a server, not as a person with a story. With a past. I'm really sorry. A few other people came closer. A younger woman, maybe in her late 20s, spoke up. Her eyes were red from crying. That piece you played, she said. What was it called? Unfinished Conversation, I said quietly. It was the most honest thing I've ever heard, she said. My sister died 2 years ago, and I've been trying to find a way to express how that feels, but I couldn't, until I heard your music. That's exactly it. That's exactly how grief feels. An older man cleared his throat. My wife passed away last year, he said. 52 years we were married. And that song, it was like you reached into my chest and played what's been sitting there. The things I can't say out loud. One by one, people started sharing. How the music affected them, what it made them feel, what it reminded them of. They weren't strangers anymore. They were just people. People carrying their own losses, their own unfinished conversations. I stood there overwhelmed. I had played that piece thinking I was alone in my pain, but I wasn't. Everyone in that room understood loss. Everyone had something they were carrying. The birthday guy pulled out a chair. Please sit. Have something to eat. You're not working right now. You're a guest. My manager looked confused but didn't object. I sat down feeling strange. 20 minutes ago I was serving these people. Now I was sitting among them. Someone handed me a plate of food. Someone else poured me a glass of water. The birthday guy sat down across from me. Can I ask you something, he said. You said the doctors told you that you couldn't play professionally anymore. But what I just heard, that wasn't someone who can't play. That was someone who plays from somewhere deeper than technique. My hand doesn't work right, I explained, holding it up. The fourth finger is stiff. I can't do the complex passages anymore. The speed, the precision, it's gone. But the feeling isn't gone, the older woman said, sitting down next to me. I've been to hundreds of concerts. I've heard technically perfect performances that left me cold. And I've heard imperfect performances that changed my life. What you just did, that changed something in me. The younger woman who lost her sister nodded. You weren't trying to impress us. You were just being honest. That's so much rarer than perfect technique. They started asking me questions about my training, about my mom, about the accident. And for the first time since it happened, I talked about it, really talked about it. Not the surface stuff, the deep stuff, the pain. The guilt I felt for surviving, the anger at losing everything, the emptiness that followed. And they listened, really listened. No one tried to fix it or make it better. They just let me speak. The birthday guy leaned back in his chair. I work in tech, he said. I run a company that develops software. But I also have a foundation. We support artists and musicians, people who have talent but need help getting back on their feet. I shook my head. I'm not looking for charity. It's not charity, he said. It's investment. In people who have something real to offer. Look, I don't know anything about classical music, but I know when something is authentic. And what you played tonight, that was more real than anything I've heard in years. I don't even know if I want to go back to music, I admitted. It hurts too much. The older woman reached over and squeezed my hand. Maybe that's exactly why you should. Pain doesn't go away just because we avoid it. It sits inside us, growing heavier. But when we give it a voice, when we let it out through art or music or words, it transforms into something else. Something meaningful. I thought about that. About the 3 years I spent running from music. From memories. From feeling anything too deeply. And where had it gotten me? I was still in pain. Still grieving. I had just buried it all under layers of silence and routine. I don't know, I said honestly. You don't have to know right now, the birthday guy said. But think about it. Here's my card. If you want to explore what music could mean for you now, not what it was before, let me know. No pressure, no expectations. I took the card, sliding it into my pocket. The party slowly started up again, but it was different now, quieter, more thoughtful. People kept coming up to me, sharing their own stories, thanking me for the music. When my shift finally ended and I walked to my car, I sat in the driver's seat for a long time. Just thinking. The card in my pocket felt heavy, like it represented a choice I wasn't ready to make. But something had shifted tonight. A door I thought was sealed forever had cracked open just slightly, and light was coming through. I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about what happened at the restaurant, about the music, about the people crying, about how it felt to play again after 3 years of silence. The business card sat on my nightstand. I must have picked it up and put it down 20 times. Part of me wanted to call. Part of me wanted to throw it away. When I finally fell asleep around 4 in the morning, I had dreams about my mom. We were in our old practice studio. She was smiling, conducting with her hands like she used to when I played. When I woke up, my pillow was wet. I had been crying in my sleep. My phone was buzzing. I grabbed it, expecting maybe a text from my dad or a notification about my work schedule. Instead, I had 63 notifications. Then 70. Then 90. My heart started racing. What was happening? I opened my phone and saw messages from people I hadn't talked to in years. Old classmates. People from my music school. Even my old piano teacher. They were all sending me the same thing. A video someone at the party had recorded my performance, and they had posted it online. I felt sick. I clicked on the link with shaking hands. There I was, sitting at that dusty piano playing. The video quality wasn't great, but you could hear the music clearly. You could see the room going silent. You could see people starting to cry. The video had been posted the night before, just a few hours after the party. It already had over 200,000 views. The comment section was flooded. Thousands of comments from strangers all over the world. I don't know who this person is, but this is the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. I'm literally crying at my desk right now. This touched something deep inside me. This is what real music sounds like. Not perfect, but true. Can someone find out who this is? I need to hear more. I sat on my bed staring at my phone in disbelief. This couldn't be happening. I had spent 3 years trying to disappear, trying to be nobody, and now hundreds of thousands of people were watching me at my most vulnerable moment. By the time I got to work that afternoon, the video had over 1 million views. My manager pulled me aside as soon as I walked in. "Did you see it?" he asked. "You're famous. The video is everywhere." "I didn't ask for this," I said. "I didn't give anyone permission to record me." "Actually," he said carefully, "one of the guests asked you after the performance if they could share it, and you said yes. You probably don't remember. You were pretty overwhelmed. I had a vague memory of someone asking me something and me nodding. I had been so dazed I would have agreed to anything. The phone has been ringing all day," my manager continued. "News stations want to interview you. Radio shows, some music blogs. Everyone wants to know your story." I felt trapped. Again, just like when they made me play. Except this time the whole world was watching. My phone rang. It was the birthday guy from the party. I hesitated, then answered. "I hope you don't mind me calling," he said. "I got your number from the restaurant. Look, I know this is overwhelming, the video blowing up like this, but I wanted you to know that my offer still stands. Actually, I want to expand it." "Oh, what do you mean?" "People are responding to your music because it's real," he said. In a world full of manufactured content and perfect performances, you gave them something honest. That's rare. That's valuable. I want to help you explore this. Not as a classical pianist trying to recreate your past, but as an artist who has something unique to say. I don't know if I'm ready for this, I admitted. I get it. But think about it. You've spent 3 years running from music, and in one night you found out that your music still matters, maybe even more now than before. Don't you want to see where that leads? After we hung up, I sat in my car before my shift started. The video was still climbing. 2 million views now. People were sharing it everywhere. On every platform. In every language, some people had started digging into my past. They found old articles about my Carnegie Hall performance, photos of me as a teenager, reviews that called me a prodigy. They were piecing together my story. Former child prodigy works as server. One headline read, "The heartbreaking story behind the viral piano performance," said another. I felt exposed in a way I never had before. These strangers knew my pain now. They knew about my mom, about the accident, about everything I had lost. But as I read through more comments, I started to see something else. People weren't just watching me. They were seeing themselves. A woman wrote, "My son died 3 years ago. I haven't been able to talk about it. But hearing this music, it gave my grief a voice." "Thank you," a man commented. "I've been struggling with depression for years. This reminded me that pain can be transformed into something beautiful. I needed that reminder today." A teenager posted, "I was about to give up on my music because I'm not perfect enough." This showed me that perfection isn't the point. Feeling is the point. Thousands of comments like this. People sharing their losses, their struggles, their hopes. My music had somehow given them permission to feel, to grieve, to be honest about their pain. That evening I called my dad. I hadn't told him about any of this yet. When I explained what happened, there was a long silence on the other end. "Dad, you still there?" "I'm here," he said quietly. "I just never thought I'd hear you play again. Can you send me the video?" I sent it to him and waited on the line. I could hear it playing in the background. When it finished, I heard him crying. My dad never cried, not even at my mom's funeral. He had held it together for me. But now, 3 years later, he was finally letting it out. "That was her," he said through tears. "In that music. I heard her. The way she used to play. The way she taught you to feel the music instead of just playing notes. She would be so proud of you." "I don't know what to do," I confessed. "Everyone wants me to pursue this. But I'm scared. What if I fail? What if I can't live up to what people expect?" "You already succeeded," he said. "You took your pain and turned it into something that helped other people. That's what your mother always said art was supposed to do. It's not about being perfect. It's about being true." By the end of the week, the video had 15 million views. I had been contacted by record labels, concert halls, and music producers. Everyone wanted a piece of the viral piano guy. But there was one message that stood out. It was from a music therapy program at a local university. They asked if I would be interested in talking to their students. Not about performing. About healing through music. About how art can help us process trauma and loss. Something about that felt right. Not the fame, not the performance opportunities, but the idea that my experience could help others who were struggling, that my broken hand and broken heart could somehow serve a purpose. I looked at the business card again, then at the message from the music therapy program, then at the thousands of comments from people who had been touched by one honest performance. Maybe I didn't have to choose between my past and my present. Maybe there was a third option. Something new. Something I couldn't have imagined before that Saturday night. I picked up my phone and started typing a response. My hands weren't shaking anymore. 3 months later, I stood in front of a small classroom at the university. 12 students sat in a circle, most of them holding instruments. They were all music therapy majors, learning how to use music to help people heal. I was there to share my story. Not as a former prodigy, not as a viral video sensation, but as someone who understood how music could save you when everything else fell apart. "I'm not going to tell you that music fixes everything," I started. Because it doesn't. 3 years ago, I lost my mother in an accident. The same accident damaged my hand and ended my career as a classical pianist. Music couldn't bring her back. It couldn't heal my hand completely. But it did something else. I paused, looking at their faces. They were really listening. It gave my pain a place to go. When words weren't enough, when silence was crushing me, music became the language for everything I couldn't say. That's what I want to talk about today. After the class, several students came up to me. One girl told me about losing her brother. A guy shared how music helped him through severe anxiety. They weren't looking at me like I was special. They were looking at me like I understood something they understood too. The music therapy program offered me a spot. Not as a teacher, but as a student. I could learn how to use music to help others while figuring out my own relationship with it. It felt right in a way that nothing had felt right in 3 years. I accepted the sponsorship from the Birthday Guys Foundation too. But not for concerts or recordings. For this. For studying. For exploring what music meant to me now. He didn't seem disappointed. Actually, he said it was the best use of the funding he could imagine. My restaurant manager was surprisingly supportive when I told him I'd be cutting back my hours. I always knew you were meant for something more, he said. I just didn't know what. Now I do. I started composing again, not the complex classical pieces I used to play. Something different, simpler, more honest. I wrote pieces about grief and healing, about broken things that still worked, about finding beauty in imperfection. My left hand would never be perfect. The fourth finger still lagged. There were passages I used to play that I'd never play again. But I learned to write music that worked, with my limitations instead of fighting against them. And somehow those limitations made the music more interesting, more human. I uploaded a few pieces online, not for fame or views, just to share them with anyone who might need them. The comments that came in weren't about technical skill. They were about connection, about feeling understood. One night I got a message from a woman whose son had been in a severe car accident. He was recovering but struggling with depression. She said he listened to my music every day. It was the only thing that seemed to reach him. She asked if I'd be willing to video call with him. I said yes. When we connected, I saw a kid maybe 17 years old. He looked tired, scared, lost. I recognized that look because I'd seen it in my own mirror for 3 years. I don't know if I'll ever be the same, he told me. Everyone keeps saying I'll get better, but I don't feel better, I feel broken. You are broken, I said. And that's okay. Being broken doesn't mean being worthless. Some of the most beautiful things in the world are broken. Japanese pottery uses gold to repair cracks, making the broken parts the most valuable parts. That's kind of what we have to do with ourselves. We talked for an hour, about loss, about pain, about learning to live with the scars instead of hiding them. Before we hung up, he asked me to play something. So I did. I played a new piece I had been working on, one that captured the feeling of slowly learning to breathe again after tragedy. When I finished, he was crying. But he was also smiling. Thank you, he said, for showing me that broken people can still make beautiful things. That conversation changed something in me. I realized that my story wasn't just about losing my career or my mother. It was about what came after, about finding a new purpose, about using my pain to help others carry theirs. I started volunteering at hospitals, playing for patients who were going through their own struggles. I worked with the music therapy students, teaching them how to reach people who had given up on words. I composed pieces specifically designed to help people process grief and trauma. My dad came to visit one weekend. It was the first time he'd seen me play in person since before the accident. I was nervous. I set up my keyboard in my small apartment and played him the pieces I'd been working on. When I finished, he sat there quietly for a long moment. Then he said something I'll never forget. Your mother always told you that music was about telling the truth. When you were young, you played technically perfect pieces, but you didn't always understand what they meant. You were playing someone else's truth. Now you're playing your own. This is what she always hoped you'd find. You think she'd be okay with this? I asked. With me not being the concert pianist she trained me to be? He shook his head. She didn't train you to be a concert pianist. She trained you to be a musician. There's a difference. A concert pianist plays for audiences. A musician plays for souls. You're finally doing what she always wanted. 6 months after that night at the restaurant, I gave my first real performance since the accident. Not at a concert hall, at a grief support group meeting. About 30 people sat in folding chairs in a community center. Most of them had lost someone recently. All of them were trying to figure out how to keep living. I played several pieces. Some I had written. Some were classical pieces I had reimagined for my limited hand. Between pieces, I talked. About loss. About the long road of healing. About how grief doesn't disappear but transforms. After I finished, people came up to me. Not to tell me I was talented, but to thank me for putting their feelings into sound, for making them feel less alone. An older man grabbed my hand. "My wife died 8 months ago," he said. "I haven't been able to cry since the funeral. But your music broke something open in me. Thank you." A young mother told me she had lost her daughter. "I've been so angry," she said. "At God, at the world, at myself. Your music helped me feel something other than anger for the first time. It helped me remember the love underneath it all." These moments meant more to me than any standing ovation I'd received as a prodigy. Because this wasn't about impressing people. It was about reaching them, helping them, being honest enough that they felt permission to be honest too. I still work at the restaurant a few shifts a week, not because I have to anymore, but because I want to. It keeps me grounded. Reminds me that everyone has a story. Everyone is fighting battles we can't see. Sometimes I look at that dusty piano in the corner of the private dining room. The one I was forced to play that night. The night that changed everything. And I think about how the worst moments can crack us open in ways that let the light in. I'm not the pianist I was supposed to be. My hand will never be perfect. My career will never match what the newspapers predicted when I was 16. But I'm something else now. Something I couldn't have become without breaking first. I'm someone who knows that music isn't about perfect fingers or flawless performances. It's about honest hearts and shared humanity. It's about taking our pain and transforming it into something that helps others carry theirs. My mom used to say that the best musicians don't play for applause, they play for connection, for truth, for the moment when a listener hears something and thinks, "Yes, that's exactly how I feel." I finally understand what she meant, and every time I sit down at a piano now, whether it's in a hospital room or a community center or my tiny apartment, I play for her, for everyone who's lost someone, for everyone who's broken but still trying. I play the truth, and somehow that's enough.